What's up, guys? What's up, Wilson?
How's it going, man? How are you?
Doing well. It's another Tuesday. Working on making a very productive week again. Last week we had some people at Cabinet Startup Training, so that was a super busy week. But with this week, we got a little bit of a break, so going to be doing some things with the business that wanted to get done, and going to be chipping away at the to-do list.
What's the big thing you're working on getting done?
So we are training a new salesperson. We started that on Monday, so that's one of the main things we wanted to get rolling. And so my mom, some people know her as Lisa. Um, she's her name's Carla, the person we are training. So bringing Carla on different sales study the actual SOP on how to process the leads, what you do during the appointment, after the appointment, how we like the salespeople to follow up. So that's a big one. And then
Hold
also,
on 1 second. Uh, cool. So forgiving the technical issues. Sorry.
are we starting over or just
Nah,
maybe
let's
from?
just keep going. It's whatever. It's natural.
So I was talking about in the Orlando shop, we're training a salesperson. Her name's Carla, and she's shadowing my mom. Her name's Lisa. So Lisa's taking her on a bunch of sales appointments this week. Got to watch her close some deals. I gave her the SOPs to study, so what to do with the leads and the appointments or the prospect during the appointment, after the appointment, how many times, and how we like to follow up with them.
It's so
So
funny.
that's kind of a big thing.
We spent all last week talking about the SOPs for sales and for leads and for nurturing and everything
Yep,
leads up to it. And part of the reason we talk about it is because if you want to grow the business, you have to be able to pass that off, and you are doing
yep,
that in real time as we speak.
for sure. And if your business relies on you verbally communicating things the exact same way every single time, it's somewhat of a recipe for disaster, especially as your business grows and you're working on multiple things at the same time. You might not be able to devote as much presence as you would like to the new hire. And so having a reference and a kind of a backup where everything is typed out and they can actually study it and then you can run them through things in person. It just makes training a lot quicker and a lot more efficient. And so that's what we're doing this week. That was a big thing. And then also paint supply. As people know, supply chains have been out of control in nearly every industry,
Yep.
including ours. And so we have fought hard to supply our shops with local industrial coatings, but almost every industrial supplier around us in our Tampa shop, Ocala, and Orlando, they're all out of stock and they're straight up telling us they don't know when they're going to get more. And some of the facilities are straight up telling us they're not even trying to make it anymore. A lot of brands are now resorting to reformulating their products so
Oh,
that
wow.
they can better source materials. And so during that transition period, they're not selling anything. And hopefully the new versions are just as effective. But us being the ones to rely on their inventories, we still have to figure out a way to keep our business going. And so linking up with different paint companies, I've been working on this week, set up a new account for Renner Wood Coatings.
Okay.
That's an industrial supplier, originally out of Italy, but now they're building out as many distributors in the US as they can.
So that,
And they have a couple production facilities in the US now. And our cabinet startup members, several of them all have already been using Renner without issue. I know your guys actually use
yep.
Renner.
Yep. That's what we've been using at the
Yeah.
Austin location. And, it's interesting. We actually just talked about that because they had a particular line that one of our students, David, really liked, and they just ended that line. I was kind of asking him. I was like, "Well, is it a production issue, or were they claiming, what was it?" And one of the things is it's hard to know because some of these companies are saying, "Hey, it's a production issue." Some are saying, "Hey, we now have a better formula," because they don't want to admit that they're no longer able to make it.
Right.
But we're not we personally don't use the one that they canceled. We're using one of the newer ones. We've had no issues whatsoever. I mean, these jobs come out looking beautiful.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to using that next week. And just things like that, the businesses have to adapt as our circumstances change.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of what we're dealing with this week. But good things heading in the right direction, being a little bit more stable with the production. This week has been somewhat of a hectic transition because we've had to figure out how we're going to get paint because we had one supplier saying they had inventory and then we went to pick up some stuff and they didn't have everything we needed for these
Wow.
jobs this week. So I'm calling all these other suppliers around town and even having to use our plan B or plan C product. And it's just not a situation you want to be in too often. So looking forward to hitting smoother waters,
Yep.
especially going into 2022. And that's what I thought we could kind of make the topic of our call this week is the goals for 2022 and how people might want to shape their perspective around looking at their goals and how to determine their goals and more importantly how to create a path towards achieving those goals. And so
Yeah, let's do it. I think
yeah.
I think the timing's perfect. I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine that owns a pretty successful business, and they're pivoting online, and we were talking about 2022 goals and the goals that their clients had for themselves. And he's like, well, that's one of my big challenges is a lot of my clients don't want to start planning for 2022 until like midway through January of 2022.
Yeah.
Which is like, yeah, I'm going to start a race like, 2 or 3 minutes after everybody else takes off and just see what happens.
Yeah, not impossible to win, but very less likely.
Yeah, yeah. Why start at a disadvantage if you don't have to?
Right.
And from what I
Yeah,
understand, enough people are looking to escape 2021 that you'd think it had already been done by now.
yeah, I mean, for those of us and myself included was, we were kind of waiting for things to get back to normal and who knows if that will ever be something that we describe the present ever again.
Right.
Things, and that's the nature of life. Things change and those changes can be unpredictable, they can be undesirable, they can be confusing. But us as business owners or aspiring business owners, it's up to us to create a good situation out of less than ideal circumstances. And the better you get at that, the better you get at reacting to challenges and obstacles and looking for another way to where you're trying to go. The better you get at that, the better you're going to be able to build your business, build a reliable foundation, build a business that not only you, but your team members and your family can rely on. And that skill itself, problem solving, that's a enormously valuable skill that you can take into any industry, any venture.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so it's definitely something that we're all going to have to get used to. And, pressure creates diamonds, like they say. And we certainly have some pressure to evolve right now. And that's what I'm doing. That's what you're doing. And we certainly recommend anyone listening to accept as their challenge. How are you going to evolve into this next year, creating a clear path to your goals? And though you don't have certainty around the circumstances that you'll be facing, you can certainly have clarity around the path that you would like to run towards.
Yep.
And that's what we would like to cover today as the topic is how to approach your goals in 2022. And you, that's something you may want to take some time to think about as far as what are the goals you want to achieve in terms of finances, in terms of your personal life, in terms of your day-to-day career or work life. All of those goals might be a subset of other goals, and you might have one overarching goal that aligns with the previous ones. And so that's something you really want to reflect on. What's your 5-year goal and how does your next year goal align with that 5-year goal?
Mm.
And for the sake of specificity, we'll talk about business. And when we look at business and look at the opportunities that are in front of us or the opportunities we would like to create, I like to look at the goals in terms of numbers, because that's something that's a little bit easier to calculate and to break into pieces.
Yeah.
And for most of the people listening on this call, they probably have some sort of financial motivation or they have a financial goal. And if that's the case, take that number. Let's just make up numbers here and use it as an example. If your goal is to earn $100,000 this year or this coming year, what do you have to do in order to achieve that? And we like the trades because it allows us to create these financial goals and to break them down in a pretty simple way. Wilson and I both have businesses in the cabinet industry, and we even specialize within that industry. We both have cabinet refinishing shops, and then we can create averages out of the services that we provide. With cabinet refinishing, we have an average project cost, an average project revenue, and with that also profit. And we can extrapolate our financial goals with the average numbers per project. And then we simply calculate how many jobs do we need to complete to achieve that financial marker. And so it doesn't have to be that complicated, and it can be very easy to overcomplicate this.
But yeah.
But with that said, Wilson, what kind of tips or what's your thoughts on achieving business goals, and maybe a little more focused on financial goals within business?
Yeah. So it's interesting because when you said, I'd like to earn, say 100,000 as your goal and earn 100,000.
Sure.
The first thing that always comes to mind is what do you mean by earn, right?
Right.
I think when people start stating goals, it's very easy for us to throw a number up and be like, oh, that's a good number. So it would take to hit that number without working through a couple of things. And so obviously you answer that question next, you start talking about revenues and profits. But the first thing I always tell people is get really specific, both in like the number that you're looking for and also how you're defining that number. Because ultimately, if you say, hey, I want to earn $100,000, that could be revenue, which, in our business means you'd be taking home, if you're a one-man operation, some $55,000 to $60,000, right? If you're one-man operation, you're running efficiently, you should be able to take home 70 to 75,000, right? But when you say I want to earn 100,000, if it's revenue, you could earn $100,000 in revenue if you aren't super specific with what comes next. You could have some poor months of accounting, come back with $30,000 and have hit your goal and still be miserable.
Yeah. So defining your goal is crucial.
Yeah, it's got to be super specific. And then I always recommend that people get very clear on why.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we all know there's always going to be obstacles in front of your path of achieving your goal, and 100%. Having a big reason why can help motivate you find a way around or through it.
Yep. Well, it's like, in every decision, you're sacrificing something else. The root of the word decide is literally to kill, right? So when you do one thing, you're killing the other option. And so it's like if your business is at a stage, if you're doing, 70,000 in profit in a year, and you're trying to get to $140,000 in profit the next year, right? To double your business, you're going to have to sacrifice something along the way, right? There are going to be times when, maybe you wanted to go somewhere and you're going to have to sacrifice that. Or, it may be you're sacrificing simplicity of working by yourself to bring on other people. But right. When you're forced or when you're looking to, nobody's forced to, it's your business. You have whatever choice you want. But when you're looking at achieving that and making some of those sacrifices, it's really hard to justify a sacrifice if you're not crystal clear in terms of what you're getting for it. Mm-hmm. Right? Nobody wants to throw money, time, or relationships away for no reason. So you have to be very clear. If you're going to invest time, invest money, or take time away from people that are important to you, you have to have a clear understanding of that.
100% agree. And so once you have that goal in mind for 2022, and you've taken the time to define that goal, so if it's a financial goal, what does that really equate to? Mm-hmm. And then putting reason behind your efforts to achieve that goal. Super important for you as the person who has the ambition.
Yeah.
So you can work through some of the natural sacrifices you might have to make and the obstacles you might have to work through, one thing that stands out to me as you're saying that is also the importance of sharing that with the ones that are around you
Oh
and
yeah.
the ones that you care about.
Oh yeah.
Because if they don't understand your perspective or your why, they might observe your efforts and observe your sacrifices and might provide some negative feedback that don't support that doesn't necessarily support your goal. And
Yep.
so taking the time to really explain that to the people around you can make a huge difference. Would
Yeah.
you say?
Oh, I mean, I'm having flashbacks of time in my lives where I had girlfriends, right? Like, they're like, you work too much. Like, I'm working this much for you, or actually whoever my future wife ends up being. If it's you, congratulations. Well,
Right. You're right though.
and I'm no longer with several of those girls because they didn't get that. They didn't appreciate that, right? They want right now wants me right now, and they weren't willing to deal with that sacrifice. And I had to make the decision to be willing to sacrifice them leaving. And so, yeah,
Right.
I think it's incredibly important that you share. Part of that is having a process. I think, anytime you say, I want a goal, I want to earn $100,000 in profit. There's a couple important questions to ask yourself, which is, why do I want to do that? And I would actually double down and ask that two more times. You say, hey, I want to make $100,000. Why do I want to do that? Because I want more money. Like, what do you can't eat money, right? If you have a roof over your head, you're only going to stay so dry, right? There has to be something you want that money for. It's like
Yep.
your children. Why do you want it for your children? So they can go to private school. Why do you want it? And just get there until you get to something that's so like baseline. It's like, oh, that feels incredible, right?
Yeah.
So
Something you can
why?
really identify with.
100%. So why do I want it? And then who do I want it for is really important.
Yeah.
How is it going to impact them if I achieve it? And then what am I willing to sacrifice in order to make that a reality? Like, what am I willing to give up?
That's huge. Can you say that again?
Yep. So why
Notes if
do
you're
I want
listening,
it?
guys.
Why do I want it? Who do I want it for? How is that going to impact them? And what am I willing to give up for it?
That's huge. And to have that sort of clarity, guys, around your goal is going to give you so much energy when it's 1 o'clock at night and you can choose to finish the night not achieving your daily objective,
Yep.
or you can kick yourself in the butt and push yourself and remind yourself why you're actually doing it and who this is for. This is not for the temporary comfort of going to sleep when you want to. It's for the potential future that you're creating for the ones that you're doing this for. That's absolutely a huge thing to get clarity around. And I would remind everyone listening to go over this with the people around those people that you're doing this for, because they are going to be a huge energy provider as well if they understand why you're working your butt off. Because if they don't understand, then they're going to react as if they don't understand.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that
it can make or break, right? Because it's like if your significant other, when you come home, says, hey babe, I know you're sleepy, but you committed to doing this, and we both agree that's what's going to be best for the family. Like, you need to get it done. You may be frustrated that you really wanted to go to sleep, but having that extra support goes a long way. It's like, lots of people played sports in, middle school and high school. And there were many times if the coach had left early, you would have stopped running suicides. Like, it's not fun sometimes in the middle. And the reason we have that outside accountability is because champions finish their suicides.
Yeah.
Right. Or is that what everybody calls them? That's what we call it, where you run from line to line.
I know what you're talking about. And for those who don't know what suicides are, it's a exercise.
Yes. Yeah. To be very clear, it's an exercise.
Typical exercise.
You run from one line to the next, and the furthest line to the next. So think like run to the 5, back to touchdown, run to the 10, back to the touchdown, run to the 15. Yeah. Sorry.
It does sound weird without the
context. That didn't translate quite. So yeah.
But that's exactly right, man. And doing that consistently over the course of this next year, you guys will develop work ethic that will allow you to make these similar decisions a lot easier. And it will allow you to approach some of these obstacles. It will allow you to define your goals a lot easier because you have confidence in yourself. You trust yourself a lot more because you've proven to yourself and those around you what you're willing to do. And doing that for a year consistently is long enough to develop those good habits that will help shape you into a good leader and ideally a better business person.
Yeah.
And to circle back to business, so once you have your overarching goal, once you have your reason why, once you have some clarity around the reasons you're doing this and who you're doing this for, what you're willing to sacrifice, what you're willing to do, I highly recommend taking your goal and reverse engineering that into steps, into certain objectives that over the next 12 months give you a strong likelihood of achieving your goal.
100%. Yeah.
So whatever that might look like to you, you want to break that up into, at least, take 12 months, break it up into a monthly timeline, and then break that down into a weekly timeline.
Yeah.
And you just chip away at it every single week, and you will be very surprised how much further beyond your goal you might end up.
Yeah, we can get a lot done in a long period of time. We're not good at, I think people in general are really bad at perceiving how much can be done in a 12-month period of time.
Yeah.
Right. And so goals become overwhelming. So people don't work towards them. But it's funny because you said it right before this section. I mean, it's habits, right? You want to break down your goals into a way, whether it's quarterly. I really like quarterly goals personally. Break down the quarters and then look at it at the beginning of each quarter and track it by week. But it's really formulating whatever habits are going to allow you to complete those weekly goals, to be able to complete those quarterly goals, to complete the yearly goals, and making sure that those things are in alignment. Because that's another thing. And I speak from personal experience. I know I screw this up all the time. I get distracted easily. And so if I'm not consistently looking at my weekly goal and being like, does this line up with that quarterly goal, or is this like a new shiny thing that I'm chasing? I will spend a lot of time chasing shiny things. And so, having that consistency of saying, okay, this is what I want to do. This is the time frame I have it to get done. And then breaking that down matters a lot.
For sure. And writing it all out. One thing that some people find themselves doing, myself included, is treating this as a big mental exercise and getting that mental stimulation, getting that mental clarity, and then moving on with themselves. And then, making the internal promise to check in on those goals on a regular basis. But, like you mentioned, Wilson, it's very easy for people to get distracted. And so taking the time to define everything and write it all out, maybe have a big calendar in your room or your office and check off on the objectives that you're creating for the day. Maybe you have just a list of check boxes and it's broken down into quarters or months or weeks or even days. And reflecting on those goals as you're creating your daily to-do list or your weekly goal list, and making sure that those things align, because as the weeks and months progress, as you mentioned, shiny object syndrome, we might find ourselves detouring from the original path, which might be okay, but you at least want to think about it and you want to acknowledge it in case that might not be a decision that you really want to stand on. And so just take the time to reflect regularly.
Goals can change. It's okay for goals to change.
Right.
So long as it fits into that why, right? I think that's totally fair. If your underlying why is to, lots of people want our money to have the best lives for their children, right? If you need to change the manner or method by which you pursue that to create that, I think it's really important. But that would never happen effectively if you're not doing that reflection. And you and I talked about that last week, and I'm trying to remember why we were talking about it. But a lot of people have this idea that successful people are always looking forward towards the future, and there's some truth to that. But more than they're looking towards the future, I find that successful people spend a lot of time reflecting on what they're actually doing, and they monitor where they're at in realm to what they were attempting to do. So, they're actually checking every week, like, hey, am I on track with my goals, and making sure those things are aligned up.
One thing that I do, that I've heard this concept before and I find myself practicing, is looking at yourself as if you're in a video game
Mm,
and you are the character of that video game, and you are the godlike power of the player in that game, and you can direct that player however way you want. You can't necessarily control everything in the game, but you have a dramatic influence of where that character turns, where when he jumps, what objective he's going towards. And if you look at yourself as that video game player, or I've heard Joe Rogan talk about as looking at yourself as a superhero in your own movie, and really taking responsibility over that, but playing with it too, having fun with it, recognizing that you can set goals and you can achieve the things that you set out to achieve with enough focus and consistent effort. And so taking the time to reflect on your goals and then acknowledging yourself for the progress you do make and forgiving yourself for the progress that you don't, but kicking yourself in the butt, recognizing that you are the controller of this video game, and
yep.
to get yourself back on track on a weekly or sometimes even daily basis if it's needed.
I love that analogy because I know so many people that even still to this day, if they're playing a video game and they're not doing as well in the video game as they like, they literally go online and they find a guide, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but it's way more acceptable to do that with video games as well than it is in real life. And I don't know why that is. I think there's a degree to which people feel like asking for help or reaching out for help or looking for, I want to copy this person, they're doing better, is going to somehow make you less than.
No.
And it's a weird
Every
concept.
successful person does this.
Yeah,
There's
100%.
not one person that doesn't learn from others. And
Mm-hmm.
I would argue the most successful are the ones willing to ask for help the most. Elon Musk doesn't do everything alone. He only does what he does by incorporating the involvement of other people, doing things that he doesn't necessarily know exactly how to do. In other words, he asks for help.
100%. Yeah, it's a weird thing to take pride in, right? Being the one that figured it out
Right.
99 out of 100 times, unless you're solving a novel problem, right? Like if you're the first person to figure out how to cure cancer, yes, obviously you might be doing that on your own. Good for you. But for most of the things in life, they've already been figured out. You figuring out how to do something on your own has already been figured out. Is just an exercise in wasting time.
Yeah. Yeah. I find much more pride in the creation of the thing and not so much the individual contribution that
Mm-hmm.
I might or might not, be involved in.
Yes.
It takes a lot of energy to put all the pieces together and to remind every component of the vision and to adapt the whole system as the circumstances change and to create the end result that benefits everyone involved.
Yep.
That to me gives me much more pride than being right about any one thing, and we talked about this before the call, kind of the importance of having an open mind,
Yeah.
and even your mentioning of if you are playing a video game and you're super serious about that video game, you might find yourself looking up a guide or at least be involved in a forum and talking to other players or whatnot. If you approach your real life that way and you approach your challenges with curiosity and the willingness to learn and the willingness to ask for help, and then create a plan to implement those suggestions or those things that can help you, there's nothing that you can't achieve. And once you start believing these things, you really start to create bigger goals too.
Oh yeah.
We all started, you and I started our businesses as home service businesses. And now we've evolved into this education platform because we've realized there's actually a much bigger problem that can be solved in the
Yes.
industry of things. We can certainly solve the problem of homeowners wanting to improve their home in this aspect or that aspect. And that in turn solves our financial problem in the short term. And as we achieve that, we might evolve into solving problems for the people on our team and giving other people those opportunities to get to the next level. And as we achieve that, we might evolve into, an industry-wide problem, a global problem. Things will get a lot more interesting when you realize that problems are nothing but little puzzles that have answers everywhere if you're willing to look for
them. And we'll get you paid to answer those problems.
Very well. A lot of times, very, very well.
Yeah, 100%. And a big A funny way that this all comes back together is my friend likes to call it time to bow on it, right? You know, you get paid to solve these problems. Look at, okay, this thing doesn't work. I'm going to come up with a solution for it. In a sense, what we do with the goal setting is actually very much the same thing. You know, it's like, I got this far last year. I want to get this further. This is a problem. I'm not here and I want to be here. How do I solve that problem?
Right.
And it's that same mentality of this is just a puzzle to be figured out. And it's a puzzle that just happens to give me a lot of money if I figure it out.
Yeah. And specific to home services, I mean, we've solved financial problems ourselves with home service businesses, and now we help other people do the same thing. And for those who have maybe gotten as far as deciding, okay, I want to start a contracting or tradesperson based business, where do I go from there? Doing a little bit of research might lead you into people like us. There's other people that want to help people in specific trade-based industries. Just look for the solution to the specific challenge. And that's the biggest thing, is defining that challenge. Yes. And if you take the time proactively to define your goal and to break that down into steps, when you do come across a step that maybe you're kind of stuck on, if you already know the next 2 or 3 steps, it gives you a lot more of an edge to finding the potential next solution, because you know where you're going already.
You have way more context than somebody that's just going, oh, here's an issue.
Right. You can tell someone, hey, I'm trying to do this.
Yep.
And here's where I'm at. Rather than just saying, here's where I'm at, what do I do?
Yeah.
Well, if you ask an expert, what do I do? Here's where I'm at. He's going to simply say, well, where are you trying to go?
Yeah.
What are you trying to do?
The Cheshire Cat.
So if you actually have that clarity and you take the time at the end of the year, maybe you guys are going to have a Christmas break or hopefully some time away from work during the holiday season, take a couple days to find some time to put some focus on where you're trying to go over the next 12 months. Yes. And just by doing that and breaking that down into a plan that's broken up into steps, you will get closer to that goal. I guarantee it. I can't guarantee where you'll end up, but I can guarantee you'll be closer just by doing those few things.
It also is forming a pretty unique habit that I think is one of the most powerful things that you can do. And not just as a business owner, as a person. There's a really cool exercise. I wanted to talk about this earlier. It's called the Wheel of Life. Okay. I got introduced to this when I was like 19, and it was like one of those just mind blown moments. And I'll post a link to that in the comments for the video so that people can check it out. And I'll make a note so I don't forget this time. A common practice that we see among successful people, like we just talked about, is that reflection, going back and looking at, okay, well, how is this going? Where am I at in relation to? And the way that translates in business is essentially the concept of getting out of working in your business and forming a habit of working on your business. Because it feels like if you're stuck and you're dealing with the same stuff over and over again, one of the things that we see the most, and I know it's frustrating for you, and it's frustrating for me too, is, guys are maxed out. They're working 65, 75 hours a week. They're doing everything they can, but they can't grow their business. And part of the reason they can't grow their business is because they're working 65, 70 hours a week. And at the end, they go home, they fall over, fall asleep, and they're done. Wake back up, go at it again. They never take time to step out and go, okay, well, have other people solve this problem, right? Like, who's playing this video game, is same game as me, but is like one level ahead of me? And what are they doing that I'm not doing? Are they wearing different gear? Do they have a different button sequence? Like, what is that thing? Yeah. But forming the habit of coming in for 2022 and planning those goals is taking that time. It is that habit of going, okay, how can I work on my business? And forming that as an ongoing practice is a massive advantage.
Yeah, that's a hugely important distinction when it comes to goal setting, because here we are talking about problem solving, where there are very well-made people saying, well, I have a problem finishing my job. And so, hiring, or, focusing on 7 steps ahead, because right now I'm struggling just to finish my job, or I'm struggling to pay my bills. Looking at your goal creation as if you are working on your business rather than in your business can often create dramatically different goals.
Yeah. And I think that's a distinction worth asking yourself. Like when you're looking at this goal, like, is this goal in my business or is this goal on my business?
Right.
Because we we mentioned this earlier. It's like I see guys that are contractors doing $60,000-$70,000 a year, and they're looking for training on that next technique, right?
Or a better drill.
Dude, the drill thing still drives me crazy. I can't believe it's got 8 million views. Yeah, they're looking for a better drill, right? And if you see that you, as a contractor, spend time trying to learn that one extra thing to help you paint trim a little bit better, or what's this best next drill, or should I buy at Harbor Freight or Home Depot, or any of this stuff that in the grand scheme of things is absolutely pointless, right? When instead you could be asking, how could we get more sales? How could I hire more people? How could I, inspire better in community and culture amongst my company? How could I focus on these things? One of the things we had a conversation about not too long ago. So one of the guys we worked with was doing 3 weeks, almost 4 weeks of catching up on problems, right? Mm-hmm. So touch-ups, going back and fixing jobs. This door wasn't done correctly, so I have to go back, right? And after 3 weeks of doing this, you have a call and say, hey man, what are you working on today? It's like, oh yeah, I'm working on this one little job, just getting it done. So, well, do we have enough sales for next month? He said, no, we're behind on sales. But if I can just get this thing done, I'll be ready to focus on sales and I won't have that anxiety. And I was like, well, you can see humans are creatures of habit, and we tend to go in the direction that we're already going. Yeah. But it was like one of those cases where he's thinking in the business so much, which is, I want to get this stuff done. I'm trying to get caught up. I just want to get back to square one. That he's ignoring the most important part, which is we need more sales, right? More money will solve most of those problems. And it's so easy to get caught up in our business instead of on our business, right? And I think of that example because if you take a step back and go, hey man, is finishing this one job that was caught up, and it was the homeowner's fault, it was stuck up for an extra $1,000. If you're spending 3 days on that, is that worth the amount of money you could have made if you just get sales for 3 days?
Yeah, it's really interesting how people do that. And I remember this conversation about this person, and I think it turned out where he had guys that he was paying additional in labor and he was still doing labor. Mm-hmm. So he was paying extra in labor while also putting himself in the position of doing labor rather than doing sales, which can increase cash flow.
Yes.
And I think that habit or that impulse might come from people's gravitation towards certainty.
Yes.
If you are someone who knows that if I paint this chair, I could check something off the list versus I'm going to go do more sales. Well, there's a little bit more certainty in the outcome of painting the chair versus going to a sales appointment that might end up in rejection. Yes. Or it might end up in the homeowner not answering the door, or, there's a lot more unknowns involved in certain tasks. And so we might find ourselves retreating from those things that might be uncertain. And so that might be something to note that could be somewhat relevant, but I did feel the urge to emphasize that a little bit.
It is that, right? We take a lot of faith. We take a lot of comfort in the known. But the other thing is we form habits, right? Both good habits and bad habits. It's like, sometimes this happened to me. It's actually a great story. About 4 months ago, no, man, I'm bad at time. About December of last year, we're a year into the pandemic. The gym had kind of like shut down. It was being funky. And I just gotten kind of lazy in some of my habits because, when the gym shuts down, it's like, oh, I guess we'll run around the neighborhood, whatever, right? And so when I fell off those habits, I formed new habits. I wasn't consciously aware of those new habits, but once I formed them, they were pretty hard. And I went from what I thought was pretty fit to my girlfriend there said, hey, babe, you're kind of fat and it's gross, right?
And it's gross.
And it's gross. And she was being playful about it.
Right.
Sort of. Right. It was playful, but it was like also, but seriously. And I was kind of like, yeah, actually, this isn't the best I've ever looked, right? And had she not said something to me to shock me out of that system, I probably would have kept going and kept going and kept going because I had formed a habit. And even though I think of fitness as being important to me, I was just going down a path. And
Right.
so, I think the other thing that happens, and part of the reason it's so important to have these regular check-ins with yourself and say, am I on track with this? Is because you can have a whole bunch of things pop up in your life that gets you very distracted,
Yeah.
like a pandemic, right? And that leads to Oreos, and that leads to, but the distraction may pull you away from some of those things, and then you start getting in, and people literally put their head down, they get into emotion day over day over day over. They look up and they go, I don't know what happened.
Mm.
And so I think as much as anything, it's like when we have high stress situations, we tend to just focus on, oh, I want to solve this. And unless the thing that you're attacking that problem with right now is actually going to solve it, it's easy to just find yourself in this kind of momentum trap. And if that momentum is not in the right direction, you can waste a lot of time, you can waste a lot of money. And you combine that with the need to want to have that certainty, and things can go less than ideally. And it's, worth noting, we're talking about this like this is some easy thing. This shit is hard. It is actually legitimately hard to sit down and make the time to work on this stuff and check on it every week. But if it was easy, everyone would do it. It wouldn't be valuable.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the values of having, or valuable aspects of having, a layer of accountability, of course, with yourself, but also with someone around you. And that's one of the valuable components that we offer with our clients when they have these check-in calls with us, is we can kind of be that girlfriend that can see things from the outside, and we can say, hey, these are the goals that we had in mind. Where are you with that? Or, you're a little bit off track here, or you're completely distracted there. We help regain that focus and have that layer of accountability with them. And so having someone that you share these goals with, and making it very clear that you're not only serious about achieving these things, but you welcome feedback. And if they do see yourself getting off track or straying from the path a little bit, that you are okay with them bringing that up to you in a way that might trigger some sort of awareness.
Yes, you do 100% need to be the type of person that is okay with catching that feedback. And that's it, guys. That's the whole secret to success. You just need 2 girlfriends with beards.
Pretty much. That's what we're saying.
Yeah. But no, I mean, you're 100% right, man. It's the having somebody that can follow up with you. But again, going back to it, I think we're going on like an hour and 20 minutes, but because it's a great topic. If you guys take nothing else from it, to condense it, pick a goal, make it specific, give yourself some meaning to that goal, figure out why it's really, really important to you, map out the goal and break it down, and then give yourself a habit system for making sure you're tracking it and checking on it, and then tell people that are important to you in your life so that they can remind you to come back to it in case you get off track.
100%.
I think it was decent.
That was a great summary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, awesome, guys. I'm pretty confident that gave you some value, especially if you're still watching. So I'm glad you stuck around. If there's anything we can help you with, shoot us over an email at support@cabinetstartup.com. We'd love to get your feedback, maybe ideas on future videos, or how some of this information has helped you. So we'll catch you guys. What's that?
We do take requests.
Yes, we are open-minded.
Mike Rowe, if you're listening.
Mike Rowe, we would love to talk with you. So let's meet again next time, next week, same place, same time. Talk to you guys soon.
Later, man.